Hey, Susan Palmer here. This is a video I've made for some of my students who are working on the jazz standard Autumn Leaves. I'm going to play it first, and then I'm going to walk you through the arrangement and kind of break down some of the concepts in there so you can hopefully figure it out on your own. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing the melody and I'm throwing in these little chords periodically. And the chords that I'm using are partial chords. I'm only playing the 3s and the 7s of each one of those chord shapes. And I do that because it keeps it nice and sparse. That's a great way to play it through a tune if you're working with a keyboard player, another guitar player, or if you just like that kind of sparse sound like I do. So I just want to walk you through some of these chords so that you can give this a try on your own and hopefully take these concepts into some different tunes that you're working on. So the first chord in the tune is C minor, and a lot of people will, start with a full C minor 7 chord like this. And this is a great starting place because this chord has the very important 3 and 7 of the C minor 7 in there. And the 3 and the 7 that I'm going to play for all of these chords, they're going to be located on the D string and the G string. So for C minor 7, I've got this B flat. I'm on the 8th fret there of the D string. And then I've got an E flat on the 8th fret of the G string. And so I'm going to play those two together. And now I have the most important notes from that C minor 7 chord. And I'm not playing the root because I'm going to assume that the bass player is playing the root, or maybe a piano player, or, it's understood. That root note is understood even if you're not playing it because those 3s and 7s are so powerful. So I'm just playing that much of it. Next chord is F7. And a lot of people know this F7 version. And to think about this chord shape, I'm first thinking of a C chord that everybody learns way back at the beginning. And a lot of times you'll turn that into a dominant 7 shape like this. So that's the chord shape that I'm thinking up here, if you aren't aware of that one already. And in this chord, we have the 3 and the 7 for that F7 chord. We have A, which is the 3rd, and E flat, which is our flat 7. So we've got a cool little movement here just in those first 2 chords. I've got C minor 7 right here, and then I change one note. It's just one note that changes. That E flat stays the same for both those chords. But that note B flat, it half steps down and becomes the A, and that turns this into an F7 chord. And from there, our next chord is B flat major 7. A lot of people beginning jazz think of the E string root, B flat major 7 chord, and it's great because in that we have that A and we have that D, which is the major 7 and then the major 3rd of that B flat chord. And the next chord is E flat major, and for this one, I'm gonna play. I'm thinking of kind of some voicings I use for walking bass lines or some big band kind of sounds. But I've got I'm thinking E flat, and then here's G, and then there's D. So my 3 and the 7 for that E flat major 7 chord, I have G and D. So it helps, to kind of navigate some of these if you can visualize where that root note would be. And in this case, that E flat is right there on that A string right there. So far our chords, we have C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7. Next chord we have is A flat minor 7, beautiful thing about these 3s and 7s is you don't even have to worry about that flat 5. So if you're playing a full chord, you know, you might play something like this, which is an E string root, A minor 7 flat 5. But inside of that chord, we have the most important notes, which is we have the G here, and then we have the C right here. So here's our flat 7, and then here's our flat 3 right there. To turn this into a D7 chord, all we need to do is move one note. We're going to keep that C where it's at, on the 5th fret of the G string there, because that becomes the flat 7 of that D chord. And then our 3rd is F sharp. So I'm moving that G down to F sharp, and that gives me that D7 right there. Next chord is G minor 7. And I'm right here just barring across the 3rd fret. You can visualize, just like you did up here, that C minor 7. You can kind of visualize that G minor 7 right there. And I'm playing, again, just the 3 and the 7. So I've got F and I've got B flat right there. And one thing I didn't do in my version that I played, just because I was trying to keep it real simple, is you can go between that F and the E right there. And when you do that, you're going from a G minor 7 chord to a G minor 6 chord. It's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is you're going from G minor 7 to C7. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but for those people up on their theory, that's what's happening. There's various ways to think about these things, and so that's another way to think about that. Then that section just repeats, so I'm not going to repeat that. The B section, we start off with that A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 7, and then we've got C minor 7 again to F7 to B flat major 7 to E flat major 7. All things we've done before, A minor 7 flat 5, D7 to G minor. And then from here, we have a G minor right here, and it's followed by a C7, so I can play that there. Then we have an F minor, so I'm going to play that here. You could visualize, I hate playing this F chord down here, but you can. You could at least visualize. It's easier to play the flat 7 and the flat 3 of that chord just by themselves there. So you've got the E flat and the A flat right there. And then our last chord there in that section, we have a B flat 7. So we've got, I'm going to play a D and an A flat right there. So that's one way that we can use what we already know to visualize that section there. And if you were comping behind somebody, that'd be great to do that. But it's gonna, at this point, it's gonna help us if we learn those 3s and 7s in some different places, because that's what I did when I played the tune. And also that's gonna kind of tie up this lesson real nicely. So if, we've got this G minor 7 here, and I'm playing with this, I should note, I'm playing the flat 7 on the D string and then the flat 3 on the B string, okay? Here's the thing. If I move this up, I play a B flat here, then I can play an F right there. So this is G minor 7, and then this is also G minor 7. So two different places. And I like being up here for this chord, this G minor 7, when I'm playing the tune, because the next chord we have is C7, and that's real nice and easy right there to grab. So I have B flat and E. Next chord is F minor, and here's another way to play that F minor chord right here. So we've got this version down here, but we also have this version here. So this one has my flat 7, E flat, the lowest note, and A flat as the note on the G string there. This version has the flat 3, so my A flat and then E flat on the G string. So those two have switched, which is cool, and I'd like to get into that a later lesson. I like going over that a lot. So we've got the flat 3 and the flat 7, and then that turns into next chord is the B flat 7, so I've got A flat and B natural there. And then we follow that with the chords we already know. E flat major 7, so I've got G and D, and then A minor 7 flat 5, I'm playing G and C, and then the D7, I've got F sharp and C, and then G minor 7 down here with F and B flat. And if you're turning around the tune, if you're going to repeat the chords there to play a solo or something, then you might want to end, you probably do want to end with that G7 there. So we have F and B. And that G7 is important because that wants to go back to the top of the tune, which is the C minor 7 is our first chord there. And G7, G dominant 7 is the 5 chord of that C minor 7. So it's a nice way to lead back into that. If you're ending the tune, you don't want to end with that G7 necessarily. I mean, you could if you're, I don't want to tell you what to do. You know, if you're really trying to create some tension and like leave somebody hanging, that's a good way to do that. So those 3s and 7s, I played them on the D string and the G string throughout this tune. That makes a lot of sense to me. This is a good vehicle tune for that. You're not limited to play those 3s and 7s on the D string and the G string. You can play them on your A string and your D string. I see people doing that a lot, especially up here, because some of the chords are just going to be easier to grab up here. Not necessarily for this tune, but you know, just so that you're aware of that. But I would encourage you to learn your 3s and 7s on those 2 strings, the D string and the G string first, if you don't already know those. And like I was, talking through at the beginning there, I think it's a good idea to kind of bring these back to chord shapes that you already know. So, for example, this minor 7 here, visualizing that full E shape chord there so you can find those notes in there. I encourage that because it's important to know the notes, know your note names and everything, but I also think it's helpful in, situations where a tune is just put up in front of you or you just want to play through it and not have to think so much. Visualize those chord shapes there, so that will kind of get you in the door, get you playing a little bit. And then in your studies, I really suggest that you go through and learn those 3s and 7s and visualize where they are. That should be done after you learned all your chord tones and your scales and your notes on the fretboard and stuff. So don't jump too far ahead with that. If you're not to the point where you know all your notes and you know the chord tones and everything, go ahead and just really visualize those shapes and use that and have fun with that, but kind of put a mark on your practice plan that it's someday in the future you're going to take those apart and really do a thorough study of those, so you have a thorough understanding there. A way that I think is helpful to learn those is 2-5-1s. So if you had a 2-5-1 in the key of C, like taking a D minor 7 chord, here I've got the F and the C, and then follow that with the C and the F up here. So, and then changing chords to the 5 chord, which would be a G7 chord. So that would be B and F, and then play the F and the B down here. So we get this, and then play the C major 7 down here. So I've got E and B, and then up here I've got B and E. And notice again how those notes switch places. I get a kick out of that. That was something that really blew my mind when I was studying this stuff for the first time. It was really quite handy. So in doing that, not only do you understand what those notes are and those chord tones, but it sounds pretty cool too. You don't want to play a whole solo or comp behind somebody's solo playing just that, but I think it's kind of fun to experiment with that in your practicing, and then you have options. Where both places are to play each one of those chords, and that can be pretty handy. Well, this video got a little bit longer than I had anticipated. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it brings you some new information and just kind of solidifies things that you already know and applies them to a tune, so you can go ahead and try that out. So thanks again for watching. Be sure to check out my method books, the Guitar Lesson Companions, Volume 1 and 2. And gosh, I've had a lot of coffee today. I think I need to calm down. I got a bunch of students to teach up here next. So take care. I'll see you next time.